Have you ever had that terrifying moment where it feels like your entire life is collapsing? The job you once worked so hard for suddenly feels meaningless. The friendships you thought would last forever start to fade. The goals that used to drive you no longer move you. You look around at the life you built and whisper to yourself, why does none of this make sense anymore? If you've been there, hear me clearly. You're not going crazy. You're waking up. And yes, awakening will ruin your old life, but what feels like destruction is really initiation. Most people imagine spiritual awakening as peaceful meditation sessions, radiant light, and constant bliss. They picture calm mornings, angel numbers on repeat, and a heart overflowing with love. And while those moments come, that's not how it begins. Awakening doesn't knock politely on your door. It storms in uninvited. It shakes the ground beneath you, rips away what doesn't belong, and forces you to look at truths you've been avoiding. It's not gentle, it's not pretty, it's raw, messy, and often heartbreaking. That's why in the beginning it feels like everything you know is crumbling, because in a way it is. The conversations that once entertained you suddenly feel shallow. Small talk becomes painful. Pretending feels unbearable. Even the hobbies and routines that used to bring comfort can start to feel empty. You're left staring at your own reflection, wondering if you've been truly living or just going through the motions on autopilot. This is the first shocking truth of awakening. The life you built before wasn't really yours. It was a collection of masks, programs, and expectations. So when awakening arrives, it begins by tearing that false life apart. It strips you down, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because only when the old falls away can the real you finally emerge. When the storm of awakening hits, it doesn't politely remove a few things here and there. It sweeps through like a hurricane, pulling apart everything that no longer matches who you're becoming. You might start losing friends, not because you suddenly dislike them, but because you can no longer pretend to enjoy the same empty conversations. The gossip that once felt entertaining now drains you. The jokes that once made you laugh now feel shallow. And slowly, without even trying, you begin drifting away from circles you once thought you couldn't live without. It doesn't stop there. The things that used to light you up, your favorite shows, weekend routines, old goals, suddenly feel hollow. Even chasing money, status, or validation no longer excites you, and that can be terrifying. For years you were told that these were the markers of success. Now they feel like weights dragging you down. You begin asking yourself, am I broken? Why don't I care anymore? But you're not broken. You're awakening. Your soul is simply uninterested in what only ever fed your ego.
This is where many people panic, because it feels like being stripped of your identity. You look around at your life and whisper, I don't recognize myself anymore. But when your old self has fallen away and your new self hasn't fully arrived, you land in what mystics call the void. The void is not glamorous. It's quiet, lonely, unsettling. It feels like standing in a dark hallway where the door behind you has locked, but the one in front hasn't opened yet. You're left with nothing but yourself, and that is exactly the point. The void isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's the sacred in-between where all the noise is stripped away so you can finally hear your own soul. And even though it feels unbearable at first, this emptiness is fertile. It's where the seeds of your real life are planted, waiting for you to meet them with honesty and courage. Step into the void long enough, and something unavoidable begins to happen. You meet yourself. Not the version you curated for others, not the mask you wore to win approval, not the identity built on titles, roles, and appearances, but the raw, unfiltered, unedited you. And for most people, that encounter is brutal. Because all the parts you've buried, all the wounds you've denied, all the pain you've numbed, they rise to the surface and demand to be seen. It might look like breaking down in tears at 2 in the morning for reasons you can't explain. It might look like sitting in silence while your chest feels like it's splitting open. It might even look like walking away from people you love because some part of you knows they're no longer walking in the same direction as your soul. From the outside, it seems like collapse. On the inside, it's purification. This is the hidden side of healing. It's not incense, crystals, or inspirational quotes. It's shadow work. It's shaking hands with your own fear. It's allowing your inner child to finally cry. It's admitting that you've been carrying guilt, shame, anger, and heartbreak for years. And instead of pushing it away, you finally let it pass through you. That process is not pretty, but it's sacred. Because here's the truth, you cannot build a true life on a false foundation. And until those old wounds are acknowledged, they remain cracks in your foundation. Awakening forces you to face them so that your soul can finally rest on solid ground. Every tear, every heartbreak, every goodbye becomes part of the clearing. Pain doesn't disappear, but it transforms. It makes space for something more authentic, more alive, more real. So if you find yourself crying, breaking down, or feeling like your heart is shattering, don't mistake that for weakness. It's evidence that your soul is clearing out everything that doesn't belong. This is where the false self dies, and where the real work, the sacred work, truly begins.
Before awakening, most of us lived inside a script we didn't even write. Society whispered what success should look like: money, titles, achievements. Family told us who we were supposed to be: dutiful, responsible, acceptable. Social media painted pictures of happiness, exotic trips, filtered smiles, curated perfection. Without noticing, we absorbed it all. We wore the mask, we played the role. We measured ourselves against standards that were never ours to begin with. And for a while, it worked. Until one day, it didn't. Awakening is the great unplugging. It rips you away from the programs you've been running on autopilot. Suddenly, you see the job you hated wasn't just stressful, it was never your calling. You see the friendships you kept weren't nurturing, they were draining. You realize that the life you were chasing wasn't a dream at all. It was a distraction from your emptiness. And once you see that truth, you cannot unsee it. But let's be real, truth has a price. And the first thing it usually costs is your comfort. You stop fitting into the spaces you once called home. Family members might not understand you anymore. Old friends may drift away. Even your own identity, the one you spent years constructing, begins to dissolve. You feel naked, exposed, and alone. It hurts. It feels like betrayal. But what's really happening is liberation. Because freedom doesn't come from clinging to what's familiar. It comes from releasing what was false. Every piece of your old life that falls away creates space for something authentic to enter. And yes, the in-between feels isolating. But that solitude is not emptiness. It's the womb of a new life. This stage of awakening teaches you that belonging at any cost isn't real belonging. Wearing masks may win you acceptance, but it starves your soul. And your soul is done starving. It wants truth, even if it costs you approval. It wants freedom, even if it means walking away. That's the bargain of awakening. You lose the comfort of illusion, but you gain the peace of authenticity. Once the false structures crumble, something beautiful, though quiet, begins to take shape. You realize you're no longer interested in shallow approval or surface-level connections. The old version of you might have chased attention, validation, or a sense of belonging in noisy rooms. But the awakened you craves depth. You want conversations that go beneath the surface. You want presence, not performance. You want people who see you, not the role you play, but the soul you are. This is when you start attracting differently. The ones who remain in your life are no longer there because of convenience, history, or image. They stay because your energies resonate. They recognize your rawness and don't run from it. These are your soul tribe. They may be few in number, but the connection feels richer, steadier, more real than the crowds you once tried so hard to impress.
You also begin noticing a new kind of peace settling inside you. Not the fragile peace of a quiet weekend or a temporary escape, but the deeper peace of alignment. It's the calm of knowing you're no longer betraying yourself to fit in. The relief of realizing you don't have to hustle for worthiness anymore. The joy of waking up and not needing to wear a mask before you face the world. That peace is priceless. Of course, the rebuilding doesn't happen overnight. It's not a dramatic fireworks moment where everything suddenly makes sense. It's slower, softer, like dawn breaking after a long night. One small choice at a time, you start crafting a life that feels true. You say yes to what expands you. You say no to what drains you. You create space for creativity, for nature, for silence, for love. And in that slow becoming, you realize something profound. Your old life was never truly alive. It was performance. It was noise. But this simplicity, this honesty, this grounded presence is real living. And once you taste it, you never want to go back. Here's a truth most people don't talk about. Awakening doesn't erase pain. It doesn't suddenly make life effortless, free of struggle, or filled only with joy. What it does is change your relationship with pain. Instead of running from it, numbing it, or burying it under distractions, you learn to sit with it. You discover that pain isn't your enemy. It's a messenger. Every ache, every heartbreak, every wave of sorrow carries wisdom you once overlooked. You may find yourself crying more often, feeling emotions with a rawness that surprises you. The smallest thing, a song, a sunset, even the silence of a room can stir something deep inside. At first, you might think you're becoming weaker, but what's really happening is the opposite. You're becoming more alive, more open, more present. You're finally allowing yourself to feel fully. That's not weakness, that's strength. Awakening sharpens your sensitivity. You notice energies in a room. You sense when words don't match intentions. You pick up on the subtle alignment or misalignment of your choices. Your body starts guiding you like a compass. Your emotions become teachers, and your intuition speaks louder than ever before. This heightened sensitivity can feel overwhelming at times, but it's also what anchors you in truth. And through all of it, you start to build a different kind of resilience. Not the hard, rigid strength of forcing your way through, but the softer, wiser strength of surrender. The strength to let go when something isn't right. The strength to rest when your body asks for it. The strength to walk away from what doesn't align, even if it hurts. The strength to keep your heart open in a world that often asks you to close it. This is the paradox of awakening. You feel more deeply, but you also become unshakable. Because you're no longer resisting life, you're moving with it. You're no longer fighting the waves, you're learning how to float. Pain still visits, yes, but it no longer controls you. And that freedom, that ability to be what is one of the greatest gifts awakening brings. So let's be clear. Spiritual awakening is not about adding something shiny to your life. It's about stripping away everything that was never truly you. It will ruin the old life, the masks, the roles, the illusions you clung to, because that life was built on borrowed scripts. Awakening takes it apart, piece by piece, sometimes gently, sometimes violently, until all that remains is your essence. And though it feels like loss, it's actually the greatest liberation you'll ever know. You'll grieve. You'll miss the familiarity of your old self. There will be moments you want to go back, not because it was better, but because it was easier. But every time you stand in this new space, even when it feels uncomfortable, you're reclaiming your soul.
You're remembering who you were before the conditioning, before the pain, before the world told you who to be. And that remembrance is priceless. Eventually, you realize awakening wasn't here to destroy you. It was here to free you, to give you a life that doesn't just look good from the outside, but feels true on the inside. A life where you wake up with peace in your chest, where your joy isn't performative, where your choices align with love instead of fear. A life where you no longer chase validation because you finally understand you were always enough. And if you're in that space right now, where everything feels like it's falling apart, hold on. Don't rush to glue the pieces back together. Don't fight to resurrect what your soul is asking you to release. Let it fall. Let it crumble. Because what's collapsing isn't you. It's everything you are not. The storm you're in is not the end. It's the beginning. On the other side of this chaos is a life more authentic, more peaceful, more beautiful than you can imagine. Trust that. Trust the process. And most of all, trust yourself. Because your soul knows the way, even when your mind can't see the map. If this message resonated, let it be your reminder. You are not broken. You are becoming. Share in the comments where you are on this journey so others can feel less alone. And don't forget to subscribe if you're ready for more guidance on your awakening path. You're not losing your life, you're finally stepping into it.